Claire's super cool guide to Pride and Prejudice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that the first line of this book is perhaps more famous than the story, which is saying something. Before you bash, consider that the first line brilliantly sets up that this book is going to be about love and marriage and money, while at the same time establishing the sarcastic, dry tone that makes this book a pleasure to read even to this day. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. Can't you just imagine your most sophisticated, sarcastic, social critic friend saying that with an eye roll over brunch? If you don't normally imagine having brunch with Jane Austen, then you should try it, because it's awesome. Okay, bring on the critique. This book is about rich white people. To that I say, yes, it is. The only thing it really has to offer in terms of diversity is that it's largely about rich white women. And I would point out that rich is a relative term. The main family is near the bottom of the British aristocracy. They have land, but not much land, and therefore they don't have much money, and therefore the daughters are fighting an uphill battle in terms of marriage prospects. Which brings us almost immediately to that this book is all about getting married and finding a man. This is where detractors of the book point out how degrading it is that these characters even have to go marriage prospecting. And it is. But it was also a reality at the time that marrying well was really the only way an aristocratic woman could exert any control over her life outside of her parents' home. But Jane Austen contributed to her family by being an author. You might be yelling at your computer, and you would be correct. But that practice was so new to the cultural landscape of the 1800s England that Jane Austen published her first 2 books in her 30s anonymously to protect her own reputation and that of her family. Now, I'm not saying marriage was the only option for women. I'm just saying that career opportunities for women of a certain class at that time were ludicrously limited. The problems of the novel are unrelated to the problems of today. Remember how Elizabeth is one of 5 daughters and no sons? That means that none of the Miss Bennets can inherit this estate, something they belaborously point out in every adaptation, as if viewers will not understand male privilege, except crazy fact, this inheritance silliness in England is still a thing. It's called male preference cognitive primogeniture, and despite kick-ass women a la Queen Elizabeth I and II, the rule states that sons inherit before daughters and elder children inherit before younger ones. They only changed the rule in 2013 to be gender neutral. 2013, people. That was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Time flies. This book takes place in a vacuum of sitting rooms without any acknowledgement of the outside world. I think this is referring to the whole Cultural Revolution / guillotine situation that was going on in France, and how it's completely absent from these novels. However, the British military was a big deal at this time, representing all the good and great that was the British Empire. The sun never set and all that. During the early 1800s, Britain had a huge standing army to fight off the likes of Napoleon, and later on, also Napoleon. Several of Austen's brothers served in the Royal Navy, so Austen was likely up to speed about British military concerns. The fact that the wider political concerns are not present in the novel probably was more a storytelling choice than necessarily an ignorance factor. Fun fact, Jane Austen and her older sister Cassandra were incredibly close. They were inseparable during their childhood, and there's a famous quote from their mother saying, "If Cassandra's head had been going to be cut off, Jane would have hers cut off too." Neither of the sisters got married in their lifetimes, though Jane's sister was engaged. Her fiancé traveled to the Caribbean to serve as a chaplain, where he got sick and died shortly after arriving. The grief that Jane Bennet feels is probably inspired in some part from Austen's observation of her own broken-hearted sister. So, not really a fun fact, I guess. Heartbreak fact. Clearly, this is one of my favorite books, and a story I love to see play out in all its thinly veiled disguises. Elizabeth is an intelligent, witty powerhouse, and Mr. Darcy is a socially awkward, deeply kind stud muffin, and I shall never grow tired of reading their love story.